Attention all menstruators. If you get periods, we need to talk about tampons. Hi, everyone. I'm Natural Dr. Amanda, and I teach Christian women and sometimes men how to apply practical, preventative health and wellness strategies so we can all live out our God given purpose here on earth. So, if you're interested in this topic, stick around and I'm going to teach you more. So, let's get into it. Today, I'm talking about tampons, and I'm going to break this video into 3 different segments. In the first segment, I'm going to share some information about the physiology and why using tampons and or pads to manage our periods may put us at increased risk for exposures based on the area and how the body works down there. I'm also going to talk to you all about some of the main toxin exposures that are concerning. And lastly, I'm going to share with you all some strategies to decrease your toxin exposure from tampons. All right, so let's get into it. Let's talk physiology. So, the perineal and vulva region, or the area between our legs, along with the vaginal mucosa, are highly absorptive areas in comparison to skin elsewhere on the body. We also need to consider that when our bodies digest things, when we eat different foods or toxins, our bodies actually go through a pre systemic kind of filtration process called first pass metabolism. This is how God designed us, so that our bodies are not as acutely at risk of exposures based on things we eat. When there's contact with certain products within the vulvar or perineal area, and or when we insert products or things vaginally, then these things are going to avoid, or not be inhibited by first pass metabolism. So keep these things in mind as I talk about some of the major toxins that are found in tampons. All right, let's get into the toxins. The main one supported by research is phthalates. Phthalates are endocrine disrupting chemicals that disrupt how our normal hormones work. They can either cause increased estrogenic type of activities or they can decrease androgenic activities. Regardless, this can still be impactful in our bodies as a whole. Phthalates have been associated with the following conditions: endometriosis, fibroids, PCOS, primary ovarian insufficiency, delayed time to conception, and some of the metabolites from phthalates are linked to preterm birth. So this can be pretty serious. The next implicated toxins are VOCs. These are volatile organic compounds. There are a lot of them, but one of the main ones found in tampons is benzene, which is a known carcinogen. And for the record, carcinogens cause cancer. Is anybody else wondering why this is allowed and why women have to suffer because somebody decided that they didn't care or didn't want to do more research to ensure that there were safe things that we could use during our menses, because we're going to use 11,000 products to the whole time. Yeah. So we need to be knowledgeable so that we can protect ourselves because apparently that's not a priority right now, which isn't good. But we know God in heaven is looking out for us. So that's why I'm here to teach you all so we can all do better and live healthy lives, right? Okay, so the last toxins we're going to talk about are toxic metals. So the 2 most common toxic metals, although found in trace amounts in some tampons, are lead and arsenic. Now it's interesting because lead, although some of the research often says that no amount is safe, the amount that's supposedly absorbed from using one tampon is quite negligible. However, we don't necessarily know if that's always true. And of course, it's quite complex. There are probably other factors that haven't been researched that might impact just how much lead actually gets absorbed. So, again, because of the lack of comprehensive research, it's kind of like, do we want to continue exposing ourselves if we don't have to? So, what I do is avoid those exposures and try as best as I can to figure out other ways and alternatives to decrease lead exposure, especially because that toxic metal is pretty gnarly. And I talk about a lot of the things that lead is associated with in the book back there. Okay, so I'm also going to address arsenic. Now, although arsenic was more commonly found in organic varieties of tampons, which is kind of interesting, it makes sense because the arsenic that's in the cotton tampons is probably absorbed from the ground as the plants are growing. So it just naturally ends up in the tampons, the organic varieties. Fortunately, this form of arsenic is also very easy for our bodies to metabolize and clear. So this can be quite beneficial if you want to attempt to have a baby. Because if you use organic varieties of tampons, by the time ovulation occurs, the arsenic should be pretty much cleared from your system. So let's get into solutions. And yes, I had to pause the video to close the door because my hooves came home. All right. So the first thing that I want to share with you all is if you like tampons and you kind of don't want to switch up what you're using, that's totally fine. Simply swap out your current brand for a certified organic variety, and that can help decrease your exposure to some of the more concerning compounds. Next, you can also consider swapping out your tampons for versions or brands that have more consideration of the applicator. Just consider if all of us menstruating women used plastic applicator tampons and we tossed them in the trash after one use and they sat in landfills for really long periods of time, breaking down and leaching plastic chemicals into the environment. That would be really bad. So, another alternative solution would be to swap out your brand if you're currently using one that has like plastic applicators and plastic wrap on the applicator and it's in a plastic bag or some type of packaging that has extra plastic. Let's just get rid of those. If all Christians in America stopped using those, I bet you the manufacturing companies would change how they package their products, which will be a win for everyone. Okay. So let's just, switch it out and find companies that use cardboard applicators and or no applicators at all. There are actually some companies now manufacturing tampon applicators that are reusable. So that could be a solution if you prefer that. Okay. And then lastly, another option would just be to stop using tampons altogether, but to swap to other collection types of devices. You could use menstrual disc or cups, preferably medical grade silicone, in order to, again, decrease your exposures to possibly plastics, because there are plastic varieties of those out there on the market. So make sure you do some research and carefully decide which type you want to use. And then you also could use disposable pads or reusable, washable organic pads. So for our reflective moment, I'm going to read Colossians 4:14, which says, "Above all, clothe yourselves with love, which binds us all together in perfect harmony." So let's remember, when it's time for us to purchase our next batch of tampons, we can demonstrate more of this harmony for our bodies, for each other, and for the planet by choosing wisely. I hope you all were empowered by this information, and I'll see you all, my sisters in Christ, because we have the same daddy, in the next video. Bye.